Hello and welcome to this NASSCOM special series, World Class from India. I'm Vikram, Chandra, founder of Editorji, and today we're going to be talking about engineering, research and development, or ER&D as it is sometimes called. Now, this is a sector that is at the cutting edge. This is the cutting edge of engineering research. And would you like to take a guess as to how much of this sector is actually being done out of India? 30%. That number took me by surprise. India accounts for 30% of all global engineering research and development. And that number is going to go to 50% by 2031. So this is a real big area. This is the cutting edge. And what's fueling India's strength? What's fueling India's dominance here? We've got some of the top experts to take us through that, to do the SWOT analysis. I have with me Anand, Ramamoorthy, Managing Director of Micron India, Harmeet, Chauhan, the Global Head Engineering and R&D at Wipro, and Mr. KS Viswanathan, the Vice President Industry Initiatives at NASSCOM. Thank you all so much for being with us on this. You know, that's actually a number, Harmeet, perhaps I could start with you. That's actually a number to be quite proud of, isn't it? Because sometimes this is part of what's happening as India moves up the value chain from a time when it was considered, oh, there's going to be, it's a price arbitrage. You don't get to 30% of global ER&D through price arbitrage. There's talent here, there's an infrastructure here, there's an ecosystem here, and all of that is the reason why this is happening, I assume.
Absolutely, Vikram. Firstly, thank you so much for having us here and for the opportunity of discussing the impact this industry is creating for the Indian ecosystem globally. This number continues to grow exponentially every year for the last 10 years. It is the last decade where, as ER&D ecosystem of India became the innovation engine for the world. And that's where all the technologies, whether it's silicon design, whether it's cloud, whether it's 5G or related wireless technologies, whether they're different industries, automotive, aerospace, medical devices. Today, India is not an afterthought. India is a very integral and integrated part of the global innovation ecosystem. And that's where I believe the biggest strengths, I think you called them out. I think there are three things. One, the best STEM universities, the ecosystem of service providers, and the India capital centers of global companies. Second is the scale. India outshines the world from scale. And third, there is a contribution of Indian diaspora globally, especially in Silicon Valley, which began this journey in the early 90s. So today, it's not about outsourcing. Today, it's not about arbitrage. It's about tapping into the Indian talent and truly enabling innovation and doing it at scale. And that's what is our biggest contribution here.
Okay, I think you touched upon some interesting themes. I'm going to go into them in more detail. But Anand, if I could just turn to you. So scale is an important part of it and the talent pool. I would like to talk to you about the STEM in the universities and whether that's gone far enough. But when a company like Micron, for example, says, let's set up a GCC, let's set up a base in India, let's try and get a lot of work done out of India, what would be the major factors that would be lying behind that decision?
Sure, Vikram. Hello, everyone. I think it's a good example because Micron is a $30 billion, the world's fourth largest semiconductor company. But surprisingly enough, we were kind of late to India. Our initial operations started a little over 3 years back. And clearly, we are conspicuous by our absence. And our leaders at that time and today, Sanjay, Sumit, and others, realized that we clearly have missed a little bit of a trick, which has worked for them in their previous lives. And this is what the earlier presenter referred to as the soft power that we have in the Silicon Valley and other parts of the world. So I think the scalable talent clearly for sure, Vikram, always plays to our strength. I think the other nuances that are not often talked about, clearly for a very innovation-led memory store, very niche technology like ours, it was important to make sure that we're operating in an environment which is considered to be IP safe. Clearly we have developed a lot of patents, disclosures, and innovation frameworks the last couple of years. But while India is not perfect compared to many other geographies, the concept of IP security, the political climate has been largely stable for many decades now. And since many of the companies setting up shops in India, and shop is not the right word, but you see, setting a footprint in India, look at all of these additional factors, and I think the stability of the country, the policies have been largely favorable, good ecosystem, certainly talent. I would not say that we are still there in terms of our research pedigree yet, but over a period of time, it's growing and sustaining itself so well that the markers are all very positive. So, it's very hard to remove India out of the equation when you're thinking of a scalable operation.
All right. Mr. Viswanathan, if I can just turn to you, and I will call you KSV as everyone else does for the rest of the program, but if I could just turn to you, let's just get a sense of what you think the ambitions should be. I know it's $36 billion in FY22 and talk about $63 billion by 2025, 50% of all global engineering R&D. Are those crazy numbers or are they doable in your view?
So let me put it this way. Except for 18 months during the COVID period, the ER&D industry from India has been going in CAGR of about 14.5 to 15%. Even if we extrapolated, we are saying by year 2025, the industry will aspirational to do close to about $55 billion business in a normal way. But the COVID last 2 years have added on huge opportunities in dependence on intelligence, security, those kind of product, personification, etc., where more and more product design engineering is being looked after by every product segment that is adding to the tailwind to the places put together, giving us an opportunity to go to 64 billion. We had a group of all the ER&D ecosystem players met in 2019 before the COVID started, realistically estimated, if all going well, I'll explain what that all going well, we have an aspirational goal to hit $100 billion worth of revenue, both from GCCs and service providers by the year 2030. When I say all going well, which Anand and Harmeet talked about, getting the right kind of talent that is required, getting the ease of doing business against across get done. Here is an opportunity, unprecedented, unparalleled opportunity for engineering and design services in India, crossing 100 billion by 2030. Just as an information to you, in 2009, we had said in 2020, industry will be $34 billion company. In 2020, bingo, we are at $34 billion company. In 2021, we have said we'll aim for 100 billion by 2030. Hope for it. We will do it.
Okay, just to get somebody watching this and trying to figure out some of the technicalities behind these GCC and ESP, just to sort of understand that GCC is, well, essentially Anand, so somebody from outside who's setting up a global service center in India, and ESP is an independent service provider. If you could just take us through that.
If I say the total IT and BPM industry gets split into 4 segments. There is a traditional IT services. The traditional IT services are application development maintenance, cloud system maintenance, infrastructure maintenance, etc. It's traditional IT services. Then you have traditional business process management, ledger posting, accounting, intelligence, automation, operations, etc. There are traditional business that gets come by the entire industry. The third industry is engineering R&D industry. Engineering R&D, as we just discussed, which is doing the product innovation and product engineering, which is taking place. Last but not least, the product, the software product industry put together. All these 4 services, IT services or ER&D services or BPM services, product services, could be done by a service provider which has got origin from India, serving multiple clients globally, or global multinational clients, such as Micron in this case, establishing their capability center in the country to deliver product and services, the parent company to remain competitively advantaged for them. So the revenues, what India does, 227 billion, would include the component of global capability center and service providers. We report one big number to the nation.
All right.
And Vikram,
sorry,
if
Anand,
you may, just one quick commentary. I think KSV explained it very well. But just like Micron, there are many more. Many of these actually work in tandem. So, for example, our development centers in India have IT, we have business process management, we have core R&D, we have engineering, we have delivery, and it almost starts looking like a small microcosm of the mother organization, because all of the different pieces of businesses start residing over a period of time, leading to more co-location.
Yeah, and just to connect the dots, Vikram, Wipro as a company brings all of those pieces together to the Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 companies globally. And engineering being one significant contributor and effort. Wipro's origins are in terms of, it's an important dimension, Vikram, you will relate to this. When India was a closed economy, India was building products for Indian customers, for Indian marketplace. And some of that DNA of building products, when India opened up, globalized in the 90s, turned that into origin of this industry. And that's where Wipro's roots are rooted in this industry and being an engineering service provider. And I think other point I want to touch upon briefly is on the IP aspect, which Anand beautifully framed it. IP is a trust aspect. So yes, geopolitical laws, all of that play a significant part. But I would say the whole ecosystem has respected the trust the global companies give the engineering service provider ecosystem in India on IP, whether it's even the secure infrastructure, whether it's processes, whether it's the whole experience in terms of protecting IP of the clients the service provider ecosystem works with every day. So I just want to bring those two data points.
It is just that over the last 4 years, 5 years, all the four engines, the service providers, multinational corporations, the startups, and the small and medium enterprises, all of them are firing to raise its aspirations of the IT and tech industry.
Right. Now, if I could just sort of take that entire point a little bit forward. If you look at the big multinationals, say we're going to set up here. Now, I've been seeing some numbers, right? Something like 85% of all surveyed organizations are leveraging a GCC. 75% of such centers, people are saying, let's do it in India. Now, when that decision is being taken, is it increasingly becoming the case that when big multinationals are saying, let's set up a GCC and we can set it up in India, are they feeling it can go all the way up the value chain? We can get everything done out of India because it is possible. Is that now pretty much what you're hearing from other partners as well?
So I can give it a stab, and then I'm sure KS.
Yeah, sure. I was asking you, Anand. Yeah.
Okay. So Vikram, the one thing I always emphasize on is the decision to grow any development center, any site, any part of the world has to stay in sync with the playbook of the company, right? Because it cannot be inconsistent with the aspirations and needs of the entity in question. But the fact is, since India checks so many boxes in terms of scale, cost, readiness, trust, security, it becomes a lot more easier to align it with your playbook. Now, does every center reach the levels of maturity that we are talking about? Probably not. And it doesn't have to, because it should go and meet a part of the playbook you are focusing on. If it is all about arbitrage, and like it or not, it's not a bad thing, right? You go and play that card very well, and then it start building a lot of scale. And then what many GCCs have done very well is over a period of 3 to 5 years have exhibited so much value creation that leadership takes note of it. And what was initially not the plan is readjusted to incorporate the value and the innovation they are seeing in the center. So not all of them are built alike, but majority of them are scaling fairly well. I can speak for my sector where all the big players in semiconductors have significant presence. I take the names here because they're all obvious. Intel, AMD, Qualcomm, Micron, all have significant footprint in the country, and they've all learned from each other's templates and examples. But there is no one rule per se. It depends on what you're trying to achieve.
Vikram,
Right.
I'll add it to that point. Especially in the last 5 years, there is a digital disruption that is disrupting their entire industry globally. Whether you call it the Googleization or an Amazonization, there is a Googleization of services, Amazonization of services. The products are getting done. Most of the technical engineering product, which possibly Harmeet support or Micron support, etc., they're all getting more software centric. People are looking at softwareization of the industry. In softwareization industry that you also talked about, where scale is, people are moving to a location where perhaps they can get software, they can get scale, they get kind of quality of talent required. That is moving the center of gravity right now into destinations like India. It is not as if other locations don't prosper, other locations do prosper. Within a true globalization sense, the pivot could be in India. Perhaps the spokeshore centers could be other part of geographies, globally managed from the Indian leaders. That's a model we are seeing evolving.
Yeah, just
Right.
to
Sorry.
just to provide a service provider ecosystem view. So, firstly, today the way we are viewing the world is there is nothing called a tech business and a non-tech business. Every business is a tech business, especially after COVID, which case we touched upon. So either you're a tech business or a tech-enabled business. When you have tech-enabled business, the need of innovation at your end is getting compounded post-COVID. So you don't even have the time to even explore the value creation. The value creation needs to happen today, as of yesterday, for the way the level of disruption is happening to their businesses. So what we are seeing, Vikram, is three things. Number one, the need of innovation. When I call time to market, I need to get something done today rather than wait for 2-3 years. And that's where the engineering service provider ecosystem is playing significant. Secondly, engineering service provider ecosystem is operating across different industries. For example, Wipro is doing it at 11 different industries. So when I talk about automotive, aerospace, medical devices, oil and gas, fintech, I can keep semiconductor, software, and keep going on and on and on. Every company has different level of maturity of where they are in innovation cycle, what their needs are. So India is today an integral part of it, clearly. Secondly, as part of the journey, ability to attract talent. Everybody is not a semiconductor company. Their ability to attract talent is not the same. Different industry has different perspective, different positioning, different relevance in the marketplace. That's where India, the scale of Indian talent is giving that leverage that, hey, I need to go to India. It's not, I should go to India or not. I need to get to India because that's what the talent is. That's what the ecosystem is for me to get it going sooner rather than later. And those are the certain things today. So if you look at automotive industry as an example, it is building its own chips. It is writing its own software. It is now talking to the whole Silicon Valley ecosystem or technology ecosystem to become a new computing device.
All right. I think that's a really interesting point, which I want to take forward. Casey, if I could just come to you. Structurally, there are some things happening with the way the world is moving, the fourth industrial revolution is moving, technology is moving, and the corporate sector and the corporate world itself is moving. There's some structural changes, and I just wanted to get all of your views on this actually, which may be accelerating the ability for countries like India to really take advantage. I am talking about things like new technologies being used, such as whether if it's IoT or AI and so on and so forth, which have not been necessarily used at scale so far. So people are finding new ways of using them, which means you're open to new thoughts about how it could be done. And that's where the possibility of plugging in, something happening out of India becomes more easy. And then there are ways that the business itself is being done by co-creation, aspects like co-creation where many companies get together to develop something are far more common than they used to be, let's say 30 years ago or 40 years ago. And again, that opens up an opportunity that somebody's doing something in America. He looks at Harmeet and says, hey, why doesn't Wipro partner with us? Or why doesn't, calls up Anand and says, why doesn't Micron partner with us in doing X, Y, Z things? So is that one of the reasons why we are seeing an inflection point?
It's a great question. And answer is a resounding yes. We have, as in India, as a country, we have several assets to show where industry has collaborated, the ecosystem has been created, the co-creation ecosystem, whether it is an CoWIN as a platform, whether Aadhaar is a platform, whether payment is a platform, all of them have created an opportunity for managing the sustainability development goal that has been planned for. Even in the beginning, you talk about this decoding this decade. In fact, interestingly, both the Prime Minister of India and NASSCOM has coined this entire decade as decade. Technology in a decade, where technology enablement to get all things fixed and crossed. Co-creation is something new. For example, just the way the platform for payment solution got fixed up, industry is now collaborating and debating, should we build up our AI IoT stack? AI IoT stack, just build up the open standard, open network, open common linkage that is required, create an IoT stack, everybody to build and layer on top of that, perhaps the SMEs, perhaps the manufacturing organization or adopting digitalization could make use of it, proliferate the input of technology in segment which has otherwise not touched this segment before. To answer your question, all of them are putting together, are creating the co-creation opportunities and big space to innovate. best place to experiment in this point of time, tech plus software that Harmeet talked about happens to be in India. Very frankly, this is a moment of truth. It is a moment for us not to lose. Here is the moment we're going to succeed.
Right. I mean, just to take that thought forward. I mean, as we've seen with the India stack and financial service and other areas where the entire concept of co-creation has actually worked far more smoothly than you would have thought. It's a new era. You don't have to have companies necessarily saying, I have a product. Two companies get together. The sum of parts could be much greater, right? 1+1 could make 7 in this case, and there's value. Is that a significant area where the opportunity is coming from in your view?
Absolutely, resoundingly yes. But let me give you some color on it. Number one, today, in fact, not even today, for last 2 decades plus, companies like Wipro have been contributing and working with the leading Indian STEM institutions, whether even if to bring the next generation autonomous stack for automotive journey. So, as you have the autonomous car, they're not just going to come to India and start working. So there is that aspect of innovation and co-innovation with the Indian universities. If you look at 5G and if you look at 6G coming in the future, there are many universities globally, whether in Europe or in the US, leading the chart on terms of standardization. So you will see the Indian ER&D ecosystem contributing significantly and participating as part of the standardization process. That's happening not only just wireless technologies, happening in semiconductor. Today, if you look at a 3-nanometer chip, yes, most likely the engineering team in India for one of the semiconductor companies is designing, or one of the engineering service provider is contributing, like Wipro. So to answer yes, the co-creation is happening materially.
Anand, you want to add anything to that on co-creation, or the fact that the new technologies that are coming are actually making a lot of this easier?
That is true. I think 2 quick comments. I think KSV and Harmeet covered it very well. Now, the other obvious thing, Vikram, that is helping is, let's say I'm building a platform, and thankfully my end customer base also has a significant development center footprint in the country, right? And it could be an automotive tier 1. It could be it's more in the automotive, mobile, and consumer space, right? The ability to actually collaborate with them makes the co-creation process much more efficient, because one thing we realize is the collaboration happening in similar time zones make things more efficient, more effective, and faster to market, right? So clearly, just the co-location of the entire value chain in India, and they're all working on leading edge technologies, not that they're inconsistent that way. So that helps. And while we talked about the macro part, even in the micro world, when I look at the scale that we have built at Micron, for example, we started off by hiring a lot of data science and data engineering and AI engineers early on, hoping to have them provide as a horizontal service to all our businesses. And then we realized that many of these are actually working with my designers in Hyderabad or Bangalore, or with my manufacturing backend team, and actually helping add true value. So there is clearly synergy coming from scale and co-location that helps make India even more attractive, because now you've got so many different functions all beginning to work towards making products and platforms much more better, much more innovative, and being in the same place, same time zone, obviously makes it much easier.
All right, KSV, if I could turn to you now towards the government. I mean, there have been government initiatives in the entire ER&D space as well. What more do you think still needs to be done? What do you think of the policies that have also already been taken? And in addition to this entire concept of ease of doing business, there's also this talk about ease of living, because if you want to attract the best global talent to India, then ease of living also becomes important. You want to lure the top AI scientists or IoT scientists to say, come and live and work out here. Ease of living is as important as ease of doing business, perhaps.
It's a great question. The ease of living is not necessarily linked to ER&D alone. The entire country, entire IT, BPM had put together. I think I can straight away relate to one big initiative which government of India is thinking. We, as the industry, are also thinking simultaneously the same way. 80 to 85% of the total exports of Indian revenue, the tech revenue from India, comes from about 8 different locations in the country. And these 8 different locations in the country employ about 95% of 5.1 million people in the tech industry, and direct employment is taking place. The industry has got an aspiration to go to 500 billion perhaps in the next 5 years. If industry has got aspiration, got 500 million, perhaps this 5.1 million will translate to say higher number, say 6.57, 7.5 million. That means you need to add 2.5 million people more to come in to get in the workforce. And the current 8 cities perhaps is not the only location where an IT services get rendered. Along with Government of India thinking, along with India's thinking, we are working jointly to identify perhaps in the next 12 to 18 months time, additional 16 different locations where there is a need to create the educational infrastructure, the social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, whatever else is required. So industry will find it easy to adopt. Perhaps the non-high skill job, the volume job getting exited from this location. The value job could still be done by the 8 location to decongest the metropolis required for the things required. There is an aspiration plan. What we have, the 16 centers could become 35 centers in the next 5 to 7 years time. That is one. So ease of living that you talked about is also linked. We working, industry working with the government to co-create skill challenges. Because our data also shows during the COVID time, the IT services got rendered from over 300 locations in the country, over 300 locations in the country. And what it also shows is that there is a talent pool available in this location that could be tapped. For various reasons, they have not returned to work. Perhaps they're not aware of the city life. They find it difficult to go to city life work. How do we tap into the resources? Working with a structured program in those 16 locations that we talked about, perhaps more, to create the whole thing which is going across and building across. That is one. Second, on the ease of doing business beyond ease of living, what we're saying is, while everything is going well as a country, innovation index of this country has improved from 65th ranking 3 years backward, 46th ranking. All of us should aim to say, how do you get top 25 ranking? What is required? Is it an ease of doing business? Again, you're doing a lot of things. Many things have done. There is an element of ease of doing business required, which you work in the government to sort it out. Is all on the pipeline right now.
All right, that's helpful. Harmeet, if I can just turn to you. You mentioned STEM talent a couple of times and the quality of the universities. And look, India, obviously, IITs, we know how many talented people they produce. And IIT graduates have done, I think they rank fourth when it comes to the number of global unicorns that have come out of there. So that's something to be proud of. But still, when it comes to cutting edge research, when it comes to being among the top universities of the world, we can't rest on our laurels, because still, if you see some of the brightest Indian talent, they still tend to go abroad. They go to the Harvards and the MITs and the Stanfords and the others. And that's really where you get a sense that the cutting edge work is being done, not so much the IITs or even the IIScs anymore. So if we really want to become the world leader in engineering R&D or any other R&D, we've got to make sure that we're also one of the world leaders where of the top 20 research universities in the world, 3 or 4 are in India.
Now, what we are seeing is, while on the face of it, it feels that IIScs and IITs and other leading Indian institutions have lost their edge. Fact is, not really. So, for example, institutions like IIT Kharagpur are contributing materially to the 5G innovation globally. If you look at Indian Institute of Sciences, it's contributing materially to the next generation of automotive technologies to come to India and be consumed by the Indian consumer. So what we are seeing is that the Indian market itself, the need of innovation is so complex, so huge, that these universities are partnering with industry, whether it's service provider ecosystem, whether it's the technology ecosystem directly, to really help address the needs of innovation for India. And there's also a feeling that if you can solve for India, you can solve for global as well. So that's one point I want to bring to the color. Second, if you look at the talent going abroad, the talent going abroad is still contributing to innovation, is still representing India in some form or shape, whether it's in the US, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in Europe, whether in other parts of the world.
All right, Anand, I mean, are you satisfied with the talent pipeline? Do you think it'll keep going? Obviously, skilling will be required. And just as, top US multinationals and other countries, the multinationals have come and set up GCCs out here, I keep wondering, and I think the government's also been trying to push it, I keep wondering why all the top universities don't consider having campuses out here and really increasing the amount of meaningful research they can do. You get a vast body of people coming in and doing the research.
And a very good point, Vikram, actually. So broadly satisfied, we've scaled so well in a very short period of time. Would not have happened without the steady feeding of quality talent and skillable talent. So clearly very happy with that. But going back to what Harmeet was covering, and broadly agree with most of what he said. But if you look at how we look at US as kind of a benchmark for how innovation is funded, both at the university level, also at the corporate level, right? And it's coming on the back of two very important things. One is the large institutions, government institutions, be that be the Pentagon or the NASA or the DARPA, actually funding the top colleges in the country, not just the top 10, but the top 100. I was the beneficiary of one when I went to US for my master's. And that kind of engine is still not there in the country. Obviously, we are a developing country. We cannot be throwing that kind of money because we've got other priorities. But we're getting better. That's one trend that we have to really further improve upon. The second one that US-like economies benefit from is the market access. We are a growing economy, but the fact that US has that kind of market power, you can reverse engineer that to more innovation, more money out there to go and solve problems. So thanks to the recent policies, I see both of these issues being sorted out. We are not there yet. I think it will be unfair to say that we are at a level of US or China in terms of innovation engines and STEM research. But the most heartening part is all the markers, indicators are moving in the right direction. And Indians are generally very good at making the most of what is available, often romanticized as jugaad. But in some form or shape, we know how to make the most of what we have, and we'll be doing that very well.
All right, last round of questions for all of you. Yeah, sorry, you were saying something, KSV.
Just to build up what Anand said, we are on the track. For example, government of Karnataka, where the hub for engineering design is there, have designed an ER&D policy first in the country to build the talent pool, research and education that's required, completely what is required. At a government of India level, have started recognizing engineering design as a differentiated segment for the corporate, the global sector, etc. And all of them are leading us to be in that direction. Lots happening on talent development, but depending on where the next question is, we will answer that separately later.
Okay. No, I just wanted to sort of wrap up now by asking you all the key question, and feel free to go in any order. Why don't I start with you, actually, KSV, on this? If you look at, there's a very heady promise that is being spoken about. The recent track record is outstanding when it comes to engineering research and development. And certainly, we seem to have passed an inflection point and the track is great. What, to your mind, would be the remaining major challenges? And what is the best way to sort out those challenges so we can achieve the promise? KSP, you want to go first on that?
Yeah. The current $34 billion revenue is being done by about 700,000, 800,000 engineers in the country. For the next 100 billion, we perhaps require a 1 million more differently able, differently kind of people. The entire curriculum, program, cooperation, collaboration, everything they talked about would need to go in significant change. If I get that 1 million people on board, I don't solve India's problem. I solve global engineering design challenges.
All right. Anand, you want to go next?
Yeah, I think KSV covered it very well. The scale of talent, which is our USP, Vikram, is something that we have to build on. And going back to an earlier point I made around the innovation vector itself, right? And some of it is every company will have its own little playbook and objectives to achieve. But I think we still believe that, and thankfully there is a design link incentive. The government is doing a lot of new incentives. We got to make sure that they translate well from paper and intent to outcomes, and with collaboration with industry and industry bodies like NASSCOM. So I continue to be positive. There is a little bit of a translation needed on some of these new policy measures around design innovation, and design-linked production.
All right.
Just to add, I think it's very well covered. I think the biggest, what got us to 34 billion won't get us to 100 billion. So the new education policy which government has rolled out, the close partnership between the engineering ecosystem with the education ecosystem, where we are embedding ourselves not only when the The students are in the final year, we're embedding, and then they're in second year or third year of the engineering curriculum. Expanding beyond just for you to have a 4-year STEM degree, there are other degrees, other aspects of liberal arts education in India, expanding our ecosystem to there so that we can widen the base of talent coming into the industry, the talent being ready to contribute towards innovation, not just be an order taker, and be a contributor to innovation ecosystem. Those are some of the aspects going to be super critical, but all of it paramounts to scale, which I think KSV touched upon.
Yeah, Vikram, for example, in end of September itself, along with the industry, NASSCOM is launching a 30-hour digital engineering certificate curriculum. Fundamentally, going to the colleges and telling them what does IoT means, what does cloud means, what does security mean, what does edge computing mean. But 780 parameters, 30 hours of curriculum, this is started. We perhaps will, in the next 12 months, create common curriculum, common assessment, common certification, create the alternate skill, remove that being the bottleneck in our aspiration to go to 100 billion.
All right, I think that's a fascinating, summary of the key issues that are involved around this. And I have to say, it's really heady. An area like engineering, research, and development, one of the cornerstones on which the entire innovation in the world is going to be based. 30% already being done out of India. Half of all of that could perhaps be done out of India in just 10 years' time from now, and $100 billion industry. If it actually happens, it's really going to be exciting. So let's try and make sure it does happen. It will really help in setting forward the entire premise. So world-class from India, and India as the design, the innovation, the research, the place where it's all happening actually. India at the center of it all. Let's hope that we are able to achieve that. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. Pleasure. Thank you.